Despite getting off to a disastrous start, the Xbox One hasn't really put a foot wrong over the past few years. The lingering taste of DRM and the inability to share games with friends that tainted Microsoft's console at launch is finally starting to fade, and Xbox head Phil Spencer has been knocking it out the park when it comes to righting a ship that was heading straight for an iceberg bigger than Marcus Phoenix's neck back in 2013. In fact, the Xbox One of 2017 looks virtually nothing like the machine that debuted 4 years ago, and that's left me feeling a bit jealous. But it's not just me either. There are plenty of people who jumped to Sony after an extended love affair with Microsoft's 360 who are just now starting to wonder whether they backed the wrong horse. I decided to finally chase that pie-in-the-sky dream and take the plunge on buying both systems. But while owning two incredible gaming machines might seem like the ideal situation for any gamer, the reality isn't quite so glamorous. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 confessions of a PS4 owner after buying an Xbox One. Number 10. Microsoft's console needs more games. Although they started out ahead of Sony when it came to exclusive games, Microsoft's library has since been eclipsed by the PS4's slate of upcoming releases. Fan favourites like Sunset Overdrive and Cuphead still make the Xbox One a tantalising system, but most of the other games have either been disappointing or made their way over to the PS4 at some point anyway. Sony fans, on the other hand, well, they're still basking in the glow of Horizon Zero Dawn and Uncharted 4, and they can only look down on their Xbox One counterparts while they wait for the likes of God of War, Marvel's Spider-Man, and The Last of Us 2 to drop over the next few years. Microsoft really needs to up their game, because outside of aging franchises, there's nothing in the pipeline at the moment that makes picking up an Xbox One worth it. Titles like Halo 5 and Gears 4 were decent enough, but where's the killer app on the horizon? Sure, there's Crackdown 3 and... Wait, Rich, is Crackdown really it? Number 9. Regular updates give Xbox an edge. Monthly updates have completely reshaped what the Xbox One can do. Not content to let its console stagnate, Microsoft has been committed to regularly updating its machine with new features that give players a reason to check back every single time something changes. For a company that harbored so much ill will a few years ago, it shows that Microsoft is dedicated to restoring its gamer-first approach, constantly trying to improve the experience for players. Sony, on the other hand, well, they've been stingier than Mr. Burns giving out Christmas bonuses when it comes to releasing firmware updates for the PS4. Coming months and months apart, Sony's recent updates in particular barely improved anything, with the biggest change being the ability to whiz around the menus at lightning speeds. With only 5 firmware updates in 4 years though, Sony needs to have accomplished something much more substantial than that. Number 8. Online subscriptions dictate which console you'll play the most. These days, not only do you have to splash out on the hardware itself, but you've also got to consider the myriad of subscriptions that come with both consoles. With Microsoft and Sony locking online multiplayer behind a paywall, that's already 2 subscriptions you have to think about buying, while exclusive features like Xbox EA Access or the PS4's PlayStation Now just add to the cost of getting the most out of each console. Obviously though, you have to be loaded to juggle every one of these different subscriptions, especially on top of monthly payouts to providers outside of gaming, like Netflix or Amazon Prime, so you're going to end up prioritizing one system over the other anyway. If you decide to pay for PlayStation Plus or Xbox Gold, that's going to dictate which versions of multiplayer games you're going to pick up, meaning that even if you own both, you'll end up playing one console way more than the other anyway. Number 7. Graphics make a difference. Anyone who says graphics don't make a difference is a liar. Sure, small graphical discrepancies can mostly be ignored, but the technical performance of a game, from its frame rate to its resolution, has a massive impact on your enjoyment of any given title. Nobody wants to have to buy an inferior version if they can help it, so if you own both consoles, there's no way that buying a version of a game that's technically worse is appealing, which unfortunately for the Xbox One, is almost always how their third-party releases turn out. The differences in graphical fidelity aren't much of a problem if you can only buy one version of a game, but owning both machines means you'll always go with the more technically competent one, which in most cases means you'll be playing the majority of games on the PS4. Number 6. Backwards compatibility isn't a big deal. The Xbox One backwards compatibility reveal was one of the biggest jaw-droppers of the generation so far. No company has ever implemented a feature like this post-release. Hell, more often than not when Microsoft or Sony talk about backwards compatibility, it's to announce that it's been phased out of their machines, rather than being put in. But if you're not the type of person who routinely plays classic 360 games, then you're not really missing much by not having this feature. It's a nice option, but unless you're dying to play Red Dead Redemption before the sequel comes out, all of those 360 titles that are gathering dust in a drawer somewhere have no reason to be touched. As it stands, allowing gamers to replay titles they probably only touched a couple of years ago is more of a convenient feature than a killer app, especially in an era where all the old games you want to play have been remastered anyway. Number 5. Game announcements become less exciting. Every time a big event like E3 rolls around, the anticipation and debate surrounding every press conference gives me a reason to get up in the morning. Yeah, it's a bit childish, but seeing if the opposing team has that one announcement that completely obliterates anything your side has to offer can make for some of the most memorable moments of your entire gaming life. Remember the cheers and applause Sony received when they announced the PS4 at a lower price and with less restrictions than the Xbox One at E3 2013? Do you think you'd have the same feverish reaction if you knew you were going to own both consoles at launch anyway? Although big game announcements in general are still exciting in themselves, their impact just isn't felt as much because they no longer spark that creative fire that comes with siding exclusively with one console over the other. Number 4. Where your friends are is where you'll play the most. More and more, games consoles are becoming more like social hubs than they are pure gaming machines. The Facebookification of the world is almost complete, and as a result, Microsoft and Sony have designed their dashboard feeds to increase a sense of interaction with you and your friends, increasing the move towards games being a shared experience. As the years tick by, it's becoming more and more apparent that the industry is trying to kill off solo experiences entirely. Even conventional single-player titles feature some kind of seamless social interaction these days, which means that where your friends are is more important than ever before. So with big titles like Destiny paving the way for a multiplayer future, the console you're going to get the most out of is the one all your friends are playing. Otherwise, you're in for a lonely, isolating experience. Number 3. There's no point owning both if you don't care about exclusives. If you're a PS4 owner wondering whether or not to pick up Microsoft's console, you only need to ask yourself one thing. Do Xbox One staples like Halo, Crackdown, and Gears of War do it for you? Likewise, if you've never dreamed of cozying up in Nathan Drake's big, dreamy arms, you're probably not missing much sticking with the machine you already own. Owning both consoles not only complicates matters if you're interested purely in multi-platform releases. I've already mentioned that things like graphical discrepancies and where your friends are will mean that you'll end up buying most of the big third-party games for one system over the other anyway. So it's how much you value the competition's exclusives that'll be the deciding factor. Number 2. Console updates will make you choose a side either way. It's becoming increasingly apparent that trying to buy every new piece of hardware this generation is a fool's game. Because now you're no longer set if you splash out on a PS4 and an Xbox One, as both systems have enjoyed iterative upgrades since their initial launch. The PS4 Pro and Xbox One X are both substantially better than their base versions, with the latter in particular eclipsing the original in terms of sheer teraflop power. Obviously, you don't have to buy everything these companies release, but the more consoles you do pick up, the more you feel burned and left out when an even better model hits shelves a little while later. Number 1. They're too similar to justify owning both. Although it might be tempting to pick up both Microsoft and Sony's consoles, unless you're a real hardcore fan, it'll probably only cause more headaches than it's worth. Both machines are just too similar to each other to make it worthwhile, lacking any major differences outside of a couple exclusive games that could make picking up a second console worth it. One system is going to inevitably be used only occasionally, while the primary console will still eat up 90% of your time. If you know that going in, then you might get exactly what you want out of picking up both consoles. But if you thought that dropping another couple $100 would unlock the gates to a gaming paradise, there's nothing to be found but disappointment. Instead, you'll just be left annoyed that you have two bricks that do the exact same thing, wondering why you weren't smart enough to buy a console that actually deserves to be jealous over, like, say, the Nintendo Switch. So that's our list. I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com, and let me know in the comments whether your experiences of owning both consoles match up with mine. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out the website for even more lists like this.
Gosh, can you believe that person said that about that particular video on that entry? I sure can't. But you should like, share, and subscribe below anyway. And also, the people who made this video, they're right here. Go follow them and give them some love. Also, there's more content, probably above my head. Check it out. Or don't. 50-50.